Hey guys, sorry for any background music, but I am in a parking lot. Music, noise. But here we are looking at the 2018 Chevrolet Traverse. This is the premium edition. It's got all the added on features that you would expect for a premium edition. But yeah, this thing is surprisingly adept and good looking. And let's start here at the front. Obviously you have Chevrolet's style grille. There's a couple of differences the way they've changed the upper grille. I think that's to aid airflow. As you can see in here, this has actually gone to the LED headlights, which is pretty cool actually. It looks really nice when it's running. Looks like just a standard incandescent fog light. The hood line has come up quite a bit, probably I'd say a good solid 8 inches, and blunted itself, which good for you. I'm so happy to see that nowadays because everybody's trying to make everything go and I don't like that at all. The wheel well arches remind me a bit of the Grand Cherokee, but that is what has to happen when you run such big wheels and tires. As you can see, these are not itty bitty ones. These are a good size, and they're using Continental tires here, which is a pretty solid choice. They work really well. Funny how even this thing has a 6-lug setup when Chrysler SUVs and trucks still run a 5-lug setup. The chrome package on here looks really subdued and nice, especially in white. I really like this bad boy in white. I think they did an incredible job with the redesign. You know, I'll pick out a few things. This could be a little bit thinner. You can see it's actually as wide as my hand. It's like those old pictures you saw with people with dubs that are 3 inches deep. That's a little bit excessive, but not too bad. The lighting treatment in the back, actually not too terribly dissimilar from what it was before, but it's again more of a blunted style versus a laid in style. And the tips, in my opinion, are probably the second weakest thing on the back. I'm not saying they're bad, I'm just saying that they're not quite right. They don't line up 100% the way they should. As you can see, number one, they look like they're in too far, and number two, the curve on the outside like that, I don't think that should even be there. I think if you're going to leave a tip like that, it should have just been an ovoid. But you come up to the back, and of course, this being a Premier, it's got all the toys, including hands-free liftgate, showing off a pretty sizable rear cargo area. This is with the third row up, of course, and with the third row up, you still have, I mean, quite a bit of space. Under here, you have a well, so you can put things of wet natures in there. Bro, we get it, you shift. Push button for those that don't have the strength to close those on their own. The rear entry into the back seat, or at least the second row, is pretty substantial. As you can see, it actually goes back past the door, or past the seat, pardon me, which is nice to have. Entry into the third row. While not the simplest thing in the world, I was able to do it left-handed with my bad arm, and it does give you an okay access. Not someplace you want to sit if you like, you know, using your legs after a long trip, but you put shorter people here, you put longer people in the second row, you're fine. So yeah, as you can see, it's a bit cramped. I'm gonna move up. Second row room is actually phenomenal. I haven't been in a not full-size SUV or anything since the Flex that actually gives you this kind of legroom. These seats are all the way back, and I'm just barely able to touch them with my legs if I sit down a little bit more. So good for you. That's the most important thing, because you can stick kids back there and have full-size 6'4" adults sitting up here. So that's impressive as hell. Of course, you have your common rear air controls, as well as a regular power outlet and 2 USBs, so you can plug in all the kids' devices and keep them quiet on the long drives. Dual sunroofs, however, unlike the Ford, these are not powered even on a Premier. But in the long run, it's one less thing to go wrong, or 2 less things to go wrong and break. So I both approve and disapprove at the same time. It gets a cubby holes abound here. You have a cup holder or a drink holder here. That's for your hand. You have a change or headphone device holder down there, as well as even more that you can't see. There you go. Pockets down there, including a place to hold another drink. So if anybody spills something, it's their own fault. This thing is actually a dealer installed accessory, and I hate it, and it ruins the entire vehicle. Luckily it's wireless and it's just held on with double-sided tape, so a heat gun will take that off. As you can see, it's pretty well packaged in there. You can actually see things like the oil filter, so you can actually change the oil yourself if you want to, for crying out loud. It almost looks like they could have fit a bigger engine, possibly the twin turbo out of the Cadillac V-Series. You can also see by how much they actually raised the nose of the vehicle, because that is about the same level as the previous generation vehicle. You can see the shock towers there, so they've done extensive redesigning to the front end of this vehicle, which I wholeheartedly approve. This engine makes, and just for your own edification, sound deadening is abound in here, which is fine. You don't want to hear that engine anyways. It's not the most beautiful engine in the world. Wow. It's the only 5-letter word I can come up with to describe the new interior of the all-new 2018 Chevrolet Traverse. I keep trying to say Trax, and I do apologize if I do say that from time to time. Please understand that it was not intentional. It's just there's so many cars out there. But yeah, this is pretty damn impressive. I mean, obviously some stuff is just common carryover stuff, but the way they put it together inside the cabin here is very welcoming and open and airy, and I like it.
Next right.
The weakest point on the whole vehicle, if I'm going to call it a weak point, would be the design of the top of the navigation screen. It sits a little incongruous with the rest of the shapes, but they had to do that on purpose because of the fact that the screen goes zoop. And to have a screen do that, it requires the shape to be slightly different, so it sits flatter, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, that's the only shape that looks a little bit off to me. So this is actually my second Traverse of the day in a Traverse. I'm funny. Sorry, I don't mean to make jokes. Yeah, I do. I'm Joe. But I took one to another dealership and picked up one. This one is the Premium or Premier. But yeah, I am absolutely blown away by this thing. That's why the title of the video is the Tahoe dead? The question is arisen because of the quality, space, design, and just overall awesomeness of the new car. And I am not a Chevrolet shill. You guys know that. There are certain cars I hate from every manufacturer. There's certain cars I love from every manufacturer. This seems to be the one that's going to tickle all of your I need an SUV needs without breaking your frickin' bank, because the equipment that this vehicle has in it, while less than the Tahoe or a Suburban or a Denali or an Escalade even, is still mighty impressive. And based on the sticker of this thing, it's still cheaper than a fully loaded Explorer of a similar trim level. Obviously, if you go with the twin turbo motor in a Platinum or a Sport, yeah, you're gonna need a few more toys, but that's because you're paying for the engine. But of course, this one has all your standard Chevrolet tropes, I guess you could call them. The back of the steering wheel mounted volume and seat controls, your voice controls on the right side, and on the left side you have obviously your cruise control, as well as you have your collision detection, which allows for the automatic braking feature on this vehicle, as well as a heated steering wheel. And I don't need those today. So this one does have Chevrolet's pretty standard climate control system now. You have dual climate controls in this one, along with displays in each one, as well as push buttons for most of the other features. Pretty simple, pretty easy to use. The only thing I ever bitch about is the fan thing here. It's not really well marked if you're just glancing, but you know, it is what it is. Radio, it's your standard MyLink, my Chevrolet Link, whatever you want to call it. It works fine, does the job, and it's pretty responsive. However, I think the graphics are a little bit outdated, and it's not showing me any kind of information for accidents or anything like that, even though it's all turned on. So maybe you have to update your subscription and get an actual subscription for that to work. Leave that in the comments if you know better than I do. I do like the blue ring gauges. I just like the way those kind of gauges look at night. And I do like the multifunction display, of course, which is there to, you know, allow you to look at all the different features of your vehicle. That I could do without. That I could live without. The auto stop start, not necessary in a vehicle this big, in my opinion. Especially since maybe it gets nicer as the engine gets more broken in, or the starter does, but it's quite sudden and severe in this vehicle. Shifter, it's your standard PR, NLD, DDL, DD, DDR, DDM shifter with manumatic shifting on the top. I'm going to take this exit, so it's probably going to, yeah. Turn next right. Sightlines, excellent. I'm glad they didn't put that extra little window on here. Granted, this is a full-size vehicle, so it wasn't necessary, but I hate seeing that on larger vehicles. I don't even think they're really necessary on the smaller ones, but I know they're there for wind noise reasons. Mirror sightlines are pretty good. On-the-road impression, but no, seriously, it actually feels pretty damn solid. I really do like it. I think it drives well. The steering feel, pretty smooth, even though it does have lane departure, which I'm not a huge fan of. I think it's a little bit obtrusive. The power delivery is pretty smooth. It's a 9-speed automatic versus the previous 6-speed automatic, so you will feel it shifting a little bit more, but it seems to find the right gear eventually. A little bit sluggish. Again, new car, probably hasn't had enough miles put on it to break in the transmission or program the transmission for any type of driving other than back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So probably didn't go out of, you know, third gear very often, tooling around a dealership lot. Brakes feel good, of course. I mean, this thing's got the bigger 20-inch wheels on it, so it's going to be a little bit heavy feeling when it's braking, but it's not overly so. The brakes don't feel mushy, so they're a good size for the vehicle. One gripe I had about the previous version was, while it felt lighter than this one, it felt top heavy. And I don't like feeling that in an SUV because you lose some of the confidence you have when it feels like it's tipping. This one feels the opposite. It actually feels a little bit lighter up top and bottom heavy, which I'm fine with. I can deal with that. I can live with that. If that's what it needs to be, I'd rather have it that way. Lower center of gravity, lower weight, makes for an easier ride, easier drive. Sight lines as I'm driving along are really good. As I said before, I like the fact that the front windows don't have the extra window in them, and the mirrors are actually of a decent size so that I can see what the hell I'm doing, which is a problem you run into a lot with, you know, design over function, where they're making these itty-bitty lenses that you can't see because they sound better for wind. Screw that. Give me better visibility. That's why I don't like tint. Yeah, for being the corporate 3.6 liter VVTi engine that's been around since the 2010 Camaro-ish, I know there's been changes and upgrades, but it's still very similar to that engine. But even though it's an older engine, it still has plenty of get up and go. I'm glad they didn't go with the 4-cylinder even as an option. Much too heavy of a vehicle. That's another reason why in the beginning of this video I titled it, "Is the Tahoe Dead?" This is as big as a 2002 to 2005 Tahoe, in my opinion. Easily that big, especially on the inside here where you see all that room. I mean, look how far back it is. It looks like a optical illusion to get to the back there. There's a lion inside of a wardrobe behind that seat. And there's a lot more internal carrying capacity than even the standard Tahoe. Believe it or not, that's the way it is. Because the Tahoe is designed on a fixed set of proportions so that it's smaller than the Suburban, and where it gives up its extra room in order to give you passenger space is by having very little room with the third row up. So this vehicle was designed to carry a lot of people and a lot of cargo. Boop, beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop. So the question that I assume is on everybody's mind is, would I buy this vehicle? And the answer to that question is, yes, I would. I think for the money, for the equipment you get, the quality of what you're getting, it's definitely worth the investment. I actually would recommend this over the Explorer at this point. I'd probably recommend it over the Tahoe. But the reason I would recommend it over the Explorer is that this is technically an all-new vehicle. So it's not riding on a 9-year-old platform like the Explorer does, which is basically a tourist platform made for an SUV. So the bottom of the seats are longer and wider because they're not fitting within a rail system. They're able to get a better ride out of it because they're able to squeeze newer technology under the floor pan of this vehicle. So in general, it's the newer thing, which unfortunately in the automotive world, just like airplanes and computers, makes it better. What will the next Explorer be? Well, that's hard to say. It may be a pile of poop, or it may be the next step past this vehicle. Although Ford put all their money into the Expedition, so don't expect a new Explorer anytime soon that's going to be that much different than the current one. Sorry to say it, but that's just the way the ball rolls. So anyways, I'm on the way back to the dealership. That's why I've been driving this whole time. And if you have any comments, leave them down below. If you have any questions, leave those down below. If you'd like to see something specific, please leave it in the comments and I'll try to grab one. And yeah, so become a subscriber if you aren't already one. Become a Patreon, because none of you are. And click over here for another video. And as always, I'll talk to you later. Wow. It's the only 5-letter word I can come up with to describe the interior of the new 2018 tracks, Elemental, Elemental P, QRS, TUV, WXYZ.